Hey, everybody, and welcome back to Speechless. I'm your host, Kev Ferris, 23-year-old conservative law student at Liberty University in Lynchburg, Virginia, originally from the Chicagoland area, but so happy to be bringing you guys this content, even out of my apartment with a new mic. So happy to be talking to each and every one of you. And like I always say, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, comment what you think, share it with your friends, all that fun stuff. I'll, of course, get to your comments. I see Demon Goral, who isn't there or isn't real, is actually there. So thank you so much. I'll get to all your guys' comments. Please let me know in the comment section what you guys think about all this stuff. But if you've seen the title, if you've seen the thumbnail, depending on where you're watching from, you know what we're talking about tonight. Kamala Harris has problems. But before we get to that, I want to talk a little bit about the idea of a parent. What is the role of a parent? What is a parent to do? Well, oftentimes parents teach a child as to and raise them up in the world, are responsible for their well-being. That's even why a parent, when they're filing their taxes for their child is claimed as a dependent because the child depends on the parent. And the thing is in our government, you guys might have heard in the last 8 years or so, since Donald Trump was first running for president 9 years ago, you might have heard of this idea of a parent state or a uniparty. And while oftentimes talked about tangentially in conversations, however, not necessarily intersecting, we discussed the idea of how the uniparty is Democrats and Republicans alike. However, oftentimes much more Democrats and Republicans that go along to get along for themselves because they're self-serving individuals. But it's oftentimes Democrats with Liz Cheney, Adam Kinzinger, Mitch McConnell, and the like. And oftentimes they get brought up in the idea of what a parent state is, because the uniparty seeks to, like I said earlier, serve themselves for the benefit of only themselves, only the uniparty. However, what serves them best is to act as a parent. And while, of course, everybody needs a parent when they're growing up, when you're a child, there comes a point in your life in which you should be able to make your own decisions. Everybody gets to that point. Our government currently recognizes it as 18 to secede from your general parents. However, obviously for certain things, you could go all the way up until like 25, 26. But generally, when you're 18, you become an adult and you can in some way be your own individual, separate from your parents. Well, the government, while they might allow you to secede from your own parents and make your own decisions, there are many within this uniparty, still around today, that seek to parent you because to them, anybody who isn't within their elite, singular group are technically children, intellectually children, and in need of some deep parenting. I mean, consider this. What are the policies that are being proposed by many on the modern left? And thus supported often by the uniparty? Well, we can go all the way to the Obama years. Universal health care being a primary fundamental policy for former President Obama. The entire idea that the government will provide you your health care. And now this was to pave the road in an attempt to usher in government subsidized healthcare widespread. And it's often hinted, if not explicitly said, that the purpose of it would be to to take out private entities altogether out of the equation. Because who puts a bandage on your boo-boo when you're a child? It's your mom or your dad. It's your parent. However, the entire idea of universal healthcare, as we know, is it's like having a singular parent for millions of children. Not only does it take away your choice, it also takes away your choice from quality, actual good healthcare. I mean, look at Canada. People die in waiting rooms to get service because now you have doctors that are working for pennies on the dollar because the government can't keep up. And that's just one example. Of course, we also have policies such as free lunch, free food for everybody, free housing, free universal basic income. The government will give you your food, your allowance, the bandage on your boo-boo, the clothes on your back. Heck, even if you're in certain Western states and cities, you might even get free drugs. Because who cares anymore, right? But there's a clear, and you might be asking yourself, you might be saying, you might be a critic of me, and you might be critically thinking, you might be saying to yourself, hey, Kev, come on. Maybe, just maybe, I want everything provided for me. I know I could live comfortably. It would take away so much anxiety. Well, a government that can give you everything is also capable of taking it away. As soon as you want to do something that is even minorly off of what the government wants of you, all of a sudden, there goes your housing, there goes your Medicare, there goes your universal basic income, there goes your drugs, there goes your cigarettes, your booze, your peanuts, and circuses. Look, the thing is that when it comes to freedom, true freedom, is nobody ever wants to talk about the idea that freedom is power. And to quote Spider-Man, Uncle Ben, with great power comes great responsibility. Or the Bible, to whom much is given, much is expected. And so to get to the Bible, we get to the idea of honor your father and mother. And now when we say that, that means in your decisions, do things that honor your true father, your true mother, both biologically or adopted, I guess, but not the government. Nowhere in there does it say honor the government. Honor thy father, the mother, and ultimately the Almighty. Now, the reason I say this is because we're going to talk about Kamala Harris's campaign, which seems to be imploding. Now, she has a lot of issues. We have the Fox News interview in and of itself. We're going to react to the whole thing on here. We're going to talk about the fallout, the bomb that was. But we also have the heavy hitters of the Democratic Party. Current President Joe Biden and former President Obama, who themselves recognize that Kamala has issues. In fact, just today, as you noticed at the beginning, potentially, if you were here then, Biden tells Obama, quote, she's not as strong as me. An ex-president agrees. That's true at the Ethel Kennedy service. This is out of the New York Post. President Biden griped to former President Barack Obama that, she, quote, she is not as strong as me. With Obama agreeing that's true in a stunning off-mic conversation deciphered for the Post by a professional lip reader. Now, let's consider that for a second. A professional lip reader. The New York Post got a professional lip reader to take a look at this video and figure out that what was being said, President Biden griped to the former president, saying she is not as strong as me, and Obama agreeing that's true. It's insane. Along with that, so the former president said, I know that's true. We have time. Yeah, we'll get it in time, said Biden, who was forced by fellow Democrats to, of course, relinquish his party's nomination in favor of Harris on July 21st. in a mutiny that Obama was, believed to support. Moments earlier, Obama said, it's important that we have some time together, in a possible reference to campaigning alongside Harris. The dialogue was translated for the Post by Jeremy Freeman, a London-based forensic lip reader who was born deaf and for 16 years has served as a University College London certified expert witness for the litigants, the police and journalists. So here's the thing is, so like what they're trying to say here at the Post is they're trying to tell you, they're like, hey, like for anybody out there that's going to come out and say, oh, well, like you don't really know, like they could totally be talking about something else. No. Like a professional deaf man lip reader. Should probably make sure that's clear. A professional lip reader who is also deaf looked at this, analyzed it, has worked for colleges, been an expert witness, police, and journalists, can see that top kingmaker Democrats are even saying there's a problem with her. She's not doing well. Now, you might be saying, Kevin, I tuned into this broadcast. I wanted a show. I wanted to watch something where it would be like a story where you have a beginning, middle, and end. Well, I'm going to give you the ending before we even get to the journey, but stick with me. We still have a lot of ups and downs. This is the conclusion of this podcast right here. Just as Obama and Biden say, she's not as strong as Biden, which is a profound statement when you think about it. The reason Biden dropped out is because he was basically an escaped from the nursing home dementia patient on the debate stage against Trump. The American people finally saw what a lot of us knew for a long time. And so he got kicked out. He got kicked out of the race. And Joe says she's not as strong as me. And here's the kicker, is that Obama agrees. Obama agrees. She is not as strong as Joe. And everything we see reflects that. In fact, while in that video, Obama claims that he needs to get out of the campaign trail a little bit more, we start seeing that there are more and more instances of Kamala's inadequacy and Obama out on the campaign trail. First, I want to play this clip from CNN. This is just, I believe, yesterday, maybe 2 days ago, in which we see that one of Kamala's biggest issues is that she has a problem appealing to men, especially black men, which is crazy because I thought she was Indian and black and also maybe white too. I don't know, but this is CNN. And if CNN's saying it, it must be, it must have some merit to it. Take a look. This is how Kamala Harris is performing with black men compared to other Democratic nominees in the past. This is crazy. Watch this.
And sometimes there's a trend line that I never noticed before and make me go, whoa. This is one of them, all right? This is the Democratic margin among black men under the age of 45 in presidential elections. You go back to November of 2012, what do you see? You see Obama by 81. Clinton only won him by 63. Then we're all the way down to Biden last time around by 53. A tremendous drop already. And then you take a look at the average of the most recent polls, and Kamala Harris is up by only 41 points. That is about half the margin that Obama won them by back in November of 2012. And this, I think, is, when Barack Obama goes in last week when he was in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, essentially talking to young black men, he made it seem like it was a Kamala Harris specific problem. This is part of a long-standing trend of young black men moving away from the Democratic Party, and Kamala Harris is just the latest to face that magnitude.
He's right. He's right. But it is a long-standing trend for the Democratic Party, and Kamala Harris but it also is specifically about Kamala Harris in a very specific way. And I think that that's one thing that the CNN analyst doesn't really hit upon as much, is that Kamala Harris is a culmination of what the Democratic Party has been doing for years. is that they continuously play the identity politics game. If you look at those last 4 candidates, we have Barack Obama, black man, who largely people admit, while there was some obvious problems with Republican candidates at the time, and so I don't want to discount Republicans' own ability to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory. Obama won significantly due to his race. That was their selling point. It's finally time for a black president. And so they played off the idea of white guilt, and they were able to get all African Americans, overwhelming support from African Americans to elect him in 2008, and then a good amount in 2012. And then Hillary Clinton comes around. Well, they played identity politics the first time, and it worked for 2 election cycles. So why don't we try it again? Let's get Hillary Clinton. We're going to have a woman. I'm with her, they all said. Remember, I'm with her. How'd that work out? Obviously not very well. And so then they're like, okay, let's tame it down a little bit. Let's get Biden. And you might be sitting out there, you might be saying, Kevin, your entire theory fails at Biden. It fails when you get to bumbling old Uncle Joe. No. Remember, the whole idea of Joe wasn't that it was Joe Biden. It was that he was Obama's vice president. They're trying to get the member berries, the nostalgia out of you and say, hey, everybody, remember Obama? Remember that cool black guy that you guys all liked? Yeah. This is just his vice president. So he's not as cool, but like he's better than the guy that we're going to tell you is a racist and blah, 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 blah. And so then now, but then Biden, look at him. He comes around. People didn't like Clinton. She was unlikable. They get to Biden. They're like, well, he's not Trump. And we've been told Trump is this evil, awful racist. We're unhappy because of COVID, blah, 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 blah. Then they get Biden and they're not very happy with what they got. So then they try a culmination of Obama plus Clinton, and that's Kamala. The difficulty is that it's the worst parts of Obama and the worst parts of Clinton wrapped up into a single person, into the least likable person, especially to black men. And so you'd think maybe they'd have a little bit of retrospect, the Democrats, right? They might look at themselves and they might say, oh my gosh, what are we doing here? We can't play this identity politics game anymore. Maybe we should try actually talking to our voters, listening to them. I mean, they had a whole opportunity. Kamala didn't receive a single vote from an actual voter to be the presidential candidate, but that's a digression. No. Instead, they're like, we're going to insert this person because we're going to still keep trying to play the identity politics game because they cannot sacrifice identity politics. If they sacrifice identity politics, then they don't have anything anymore. And that's exactly what Kamala is. The whole time she's been parading around, I'm the first black Indian woman vice president. I'm the first black woman Indian vice president. Never once has she ever had to articulate a policy issue. And so you think there's all these reasons why you might not want to vote for Kamala Harris, right? All these substantive reasons that the Democratic Party has been patronizing black men, black people, everybody that pretty much vote. They patronize you. Maybe it's the fact that their policies have shown in the last 4 years not to work, that she's the current vice president and she's not doing a very good job. Maybe it's that you just think she's unlikable. There's all these reasons, right? But Barack Obama swoops in, and here's what he has to say to voters. Take a look and listen.
Campaign trail, and he's making the case against Donald Trump. But before his guest feature in Pennsylvania, Obama made a surprise visit to Kamala Harris's campaign headquarters in Pittsburgh. It was there that he got candid. Maybe the vice president's inner circle tonight. He warned that Harris is underperforming him with black voters, and he had a message specifically for black men.
Part of it makes me think that, well, you just aren't feeling the idea of having a woman as president.
Wait.
And you're
Hey, I want to play that one more time. So you guys really get what he just said. Part of me is feeling that maybe you guys just aren't. Listen.
Part of it makes me think that, well, you just aren't feeling the idea of having a woman as president.
Oh, so it's not everything else. It's not everything else. It's not the bad policy. It's not the open borders. It's not the immigration. It's not the bad economy. It's not that she has articulated little to no policy, and when she does, when she gets any kind of pushback whatsoever, she does a very poor job articulating herself. No. It's none of that. It's not that she's even just annoying and that she laughs at serious subjects or that she's wishy-washy on the issue of Israel. No. It's not any of these issues. It must be because all these black men are sexist. It must be because they're sexist. That must be the reason, right? Couldn't be. No, of course not. It couldn't be. And this is what I mean. Remember what I said about the parent state when you watch the rest of this. Watch Obama.
And you're coming up with other alternatives and other reasons for them. And so now you're thinking about sitting out or even supporting somebody who has a...
Sorry about that. Here we go.
Who has a...
I don't know.
A sign of strength, because
I want to make sure you guys get to fully see this. Sorry, sometimes it gets a little glitchy here. We'll make this work.
you're thinking about sitting out or even supporting somebody who has a... A sign of strength, because that's putting women down. That's not acceptable.
That's not acceptable. Watch the end right there one more time.
That's not acceptable.
Even gets the finger wag in there. Even the finger wag. That's the parent state, everybody. That is the parent state. Barack Obama doesn't listen to the children. You don't take them seriously. If a kid comes to you and says something that seems outrageous to you. No. So like if you have, so this is how Barack Obama really sees it, is that the kids, the voters, because he of course they can't be on the same level as good old Barack Obama. He's the one who legalized gay marriage. He is this hero to all. He was the first black president. He has all of his constituents coming and saying, you know, man, we don't like this lady. She's done a bad job. Joe has done a bad job. Our country is not doing well. Barack is like, to him, that's like a child coming and saying, there's a monster under my bed. There's a monster under my bed. And Barack is like, no, there's no way. It's not that it's because, no. Honey, let me check under the bed. There's no monster there. There's no issue with the economy. There's no issue with the immigration system. There's no issue. And if there is an issue, it's not her fault. It's not her fault. It's because she's a woman. It must be because she's a woman. That's the issue. That's the parent. And he gives you the finger and he says, that's unacceptable. That's not acceptable. Oh my gosh, I'm sorry. Am I hurting your feelings, Mr. Former President? I'm so sorry. And that is the parent state, everybody. And this is also one of the major reasons that Kamala is losing men. I don't doubt. Now, I'm not a person that necessarily supports the idea of a woman being president. I'm not. And that might sound controversial to you. I'm not. Do I think that a woman could do it? Absolutely. But I think by and large, men are usually more suited to be president. Now, that's a generalization. If you asked me Tim Walz versus, I don't know, Tim Walz versus most Republican women, I'd probably say most Republican women. Like, if we're really being honest here. Kristi Noem, even Nikki Haley. I'm not a big fan of Nikki Haley, but I'd rather have Nikki Haley over Tim Walz. Harmeet Dillon. Plenty of options. But by and large, I'm of that opinion. And it's not crazy to say that. It's not crazy to say that. Men, overall, are usually much more physically and emotionally assertive. That's what we need out of a leader. They're more prone to leadership roles. However, I'm digressing. The point of this is that Kamala Harris is not appealing to men, not simply because she's a woman, because she is not talking to men like they are men. And so she brings in the most feminine man there you could possibly have, alleged child predator, Tim Walz, to be her VP. And we're going to talk about him a little bit. But before we get to him, we're going to talk about, so there's this idea of hunting, right? So Tim Walz is a big hunter. He's from Minnesota. He's a big hunter. And so to appeal to men, Kamala Harris's campaign, their first thing that they did, they were like, you know what we're going to do? What we're going to do is, you know what men like? Men like camo. They like camouflage. So we're going to get these men some camo. And so that's what they did. Harris Walz hats that are camo. Take a look and listen.
Our viewers, something that our colleague Josh Campbell just pointed out to me, and I believe we have it. It's new merch. All the campaigns get merch up really quickly. But this in particular, as Josh is pointing out, is in orange, blaze orange. It's a color used by hunters for safety purposes. And that's what Tim Walz is. He is a hunter. And the fact that that is one of the first things that they are selling, that tells you a lot about the way that they are trying to get the white men.
I might get one. That's not I mean, there's a way to style that hat.
That's how they're trying to get the white men. That's how they're going to try to get the white men. Oh, that's how they're going to get them. And Tim Walz, everybody, he's a hunter. He's a hunter. Now, I'm much more prone to believe that he would be a predator towards children rather than the buck in the forest. But that's also because I'm a little bit informed on this issue. I don't know if you guys had a chance to see, but Tampon Tim posed for cameras just about a week ago during a hunting trip. We say a hunting trip loosely. And he had trouble with his rifle. The photo op was supposed to help him win over more male voters. But I would say this poorly orchestrated photo op might have done more harm than good. Take a look and listen to this clip of Tim Walz trying to load a gun. Seems like he has a little bit of an issue here.
It never fits quite right. Never fits quite right. It's not quite right. How do you give it back?
Governor, what kind of gun is it?
This is a Beretta A400. I bought it when
He must have memorized that off the note card they gave him.
I was shooting a lot of trap, because it has a kind of their patented thing, a kickoff. So when you get old, it doesn't hurt your shoulder as much.
So he has a hard time loading it a little bit there. And take a look here.
Ready to go.
You hear that? Hear that in the background? How they're directing him for the photo.
Okay. Keep walking. Okay, we can do that. All right. The dogs are working hard. Here. Ghost.
Man, looks like he has never. He looks so uncomfortable holding that gun. It's like he's thinking to himself, like, oh man, I can't wait to take these out of the hands of all of the stupid children I want to govern.
And we're going to flush your 12 point some point in there, right? What was that? We're going to flush the 12 point that you're getting here in November.
I tell you what, Governor, I can show you a video later. In springtime, I stood out here and I watched 45 deer run across.
Yeah.
The field. They must winter here.
Talks about all the deer. Doesn't look like he's trying to hunt any of them.
Sure.
All right. Are we ready to go?
You guys.
Yeah, you can just.
I'm cool if you just keep walking.
Oh my God.
Okay.
Walking in the front.
All right. Feel, gotta say this is a first for a pheasant hunt for me.
I know.
Happens all the time here, honey.
So we were saying, Matt, when it was Scott and I, just the two of us, it was a little different.
Yeah, I'll bet. Okay.
All right.
Yeah, you can see he just continuously is doing a photo op. There's actually like nothing that He's never actually hunting anything. And so here's the thing. It's like, do you need to be this ardent hunter to be considered a man? What is a man? What is a man? Solid question, especially in the age in which one party can't define woman. What is a man? Now, of course, we could go to the very simple answer. Man is an individual with XY chromosomes, has general biological and physical features that are in standard with a general human male. We could go through that. But what does it mean to be a man? Is a man not manly because he doesn't hunt? No, not necessarily, because he doesn't hunt in this way. I mean, every man should hunt in some way. They should be a protector, they should be a provider, etc. But that said, because he doesn't hunt like Tim Walz is attempting, no, you wouldn't necessarily be a man. But you want to know what's anti-manly? You want to know what's anti-man? Is going out and pretending to be a hunter, because in your caricature of a man, you need to be this stereotypical hunter guy to be a man. And so in your caricature, you have to do that. And so you're going to go out and not know how to do it. That is anti-manly. And when I say that, I don't mean that that's feminine or woman-like. No, it's cowardice. It is true cowardice. Because it is a person who is lying to you to get your vote. This is no different than when Kamala gets on a stage and changes the dialect of her voice to sound more urban or more rural or more southern or more northern. This is no different than that. And that's exactly what Tim Walz is showing us here. Now, I did see a great meme that looked like it was Tim Walz. He was having a hard time loading the gun because he was trying to get a tampon in it so he could shoot it into your children's schools. Because we know that's how it is. But this is just an example, a simple example of how Democrats don't know what a man is. And now I don't just mean that in the fact that they believe a man can become a woman and a woman can become a man. It's a perfect example of how they don't know what a man is. And they don't know what a man is because they, once again, never take the chance to actually talk to their constituents. Instead, they make bold assumptions and then make ads like this. You guys might have seen this one going around. I would like us to take a look and listen to it. This is a new ad about men that I don't believe the Harris campaign explicitly put out, but I think it might have, maybe they did, but I think it was like supporters of Harris put out. And I think this is just a perfect example. Let's take a look and listen right here.
I'm a man.
I'm a man.
I'm a man, man.
And I'm man enough.
I'm man enough to enjoy a barrel-proof bourbon.
Neat.
Man enough to cook my steak rare.
I don't believe that for a second. I don't believe the way that man is sitting like that. And then the way that he talks. I believe this is the first time this man has ever been on a farm. I believe that this man is the first time this man has ever sat in a bed of a pickup truck. And I also would believe if you told me that this man was very homosexual.
Man enough to deadlift 500, then braid the out of my daughter's hair.
You think I'm afraid to rebuild a carburetor? I eat carbureted for breakfast.
That I don't doubt. I believe that man would eat pretty much anything.
I ain't afraid of bears.
That's what bear hugs are for.
I'll tell you another thing I sure as shit am not afraid of. Women.
I actually beg to differ on that one. I think that most of these men would be afraid of women because I think they're probably gay.
I'm not afraid of women.
I'm not afraid of women.
That one I definitely don't believe of. And for this man, if he says he's not afraid of women, I believe women would be afraid of him.
Want to control their bodies? I say go for it.
Now, okay, so I don't know. I keep pausing because there's so much to say, but let's listen to that. What he had to say one more time.
The women, they want to control their bodies? I say go for it.
See, that sounds like something a predator would say. And he looks like one too. And he comes out and he goes, if women want to control their bodies, do it. I encourage it. Do it around me. That's basically what that man is saying. It's creepy, right? It's creepy.
They want to use IVF to start a family? I'm not afraid of families.
They want to be childless cat ladies?
Have all the cats you want.
Woman wants to be president?
Well, I hope she has the guts to look me right in the eye and accept my full-throated endorsement.
His full-throated endorsement. Now, this could not be more of a parody of itself. It couldn't be more of a parody of itself. Man comes out. He goes, my full-throated endorsement. Like, and he's looking dead in the camera. Like, he's looking into your soul in this picture, in this still right here of this ad. He is looking into your soul and saying his full-throated endorsement. I have no doubt in my mind this man knows what it feels like to have a full throat. Let's keep going.
Because I'm man enough to support women.
Man enough to know what kind of donuts I like.
Man enough to admit I'm lost, even when I refuse to ask for directions.
Man enough to not ban young women from reading Little Women.
Or what?
I don't doubt that man cares a lot about young women. Well, in his own way.
One of those pants books that the sisters like.
I'm man enough to raw dog a flight. It sucked. Not worth it.
I'm man enough to be emotional in front of my wife.
In front of my kids.
In front of my horse.
I'm man enough to tell you that I cry at Love Actually.
Good Will Hunting.
West Side Story. That and Predator.
And I'm sick of so-called men domineering, belittling, and controlling women just so they can feel more powerful.
That's not how my mama raised me.
I love women.
I love women who support their families.
Women who decide not to have families.
Women who take charge.
And I'm man enough to help them win.
Like, I look at all of them. Like, I don't look at a single one of these men and think like that looks like a strong man. Like that dude, like, definitely has at least type 1, maybe type 2. This dude looks like he would be a predator. Like, I don't think he would usually care about politics. This dude looks like a soft individual. He looks like a soy boy. This dude said, like, at the very beginning, it might be even this part of the clip. He says, like, he benches 300.
Bourbon.
Neat.
Man enough.
I know he said neat there. He says benches 300. I doubt that. I think if you put me and him up next to each other, I bet I could probably beat him in a push-up contest. No doubt. 100%. There's no chance. Then you get to this guy. I've already roasted him enough. He's full-throated. He gets it. Let's see what other men are in this ad. That one we've already talked about. This dude. Okay, this dude, like, literally looks like, if you've ever played on a Wii, he looks like the original me. Like, the most average looking dude, does not look particularly manly. I'm not going to say he looks feminine necessarily, but he doesn't look strong by any means. I think he would need help getting up on that horse. Just saying. And, like, again, that's not necessarily terrible for all men. Like, yeah, sure, you might have a man who's like, does very good work in the city, is like a CEO something, wouldn't know how to get up on a horse. Does not necessarily define being a man. However, don't put him next to a horse then. And that's the thing. These are all actors. Like, you realize that, right? These are all actors. These are not real dudes. And I'm willing to, I mean, there's even a chance that they're not even all dudes that are going to vote for Harris. These are men that are just getting paid to be there and read the lines. And the funniest thing about that is the men that they got were run of the mill, not very relatable, not manly men. Like, the idea of what they're trying to do here is this level of juxtaposition of the idea. Like, he says, like, I'm man enough to braid my daughter's hair. They're trying to do a juxtaposition of, like, what is traditionally thought as masculine, and put it up against and try to challenge this idea of what it means to be a man. The ironic thing about that is you have them in that juxtaposition unintentionally, I would argue, unintentionally saying that it is not traditionally manly to vote for Harris Walz. That's essentially what they're saying through this kind of joke advertisement that acts upon a parody of itself. That's really what it is. This is a parody of itself. And I think it's probably one of the funniest things I've ever seen. But what would you expect from a party that doesn't know what a woman is? What would you expect from a party that doesn't listen to its constituency? I don't know if you guys have seen, but in recent years, we've seen an uptick, massive uptick, in which like 96% of 18-year-old boys are voting Republican. Why? Because the Democratic Party does not know. They've constantly fed this idea that to be a strong man, you have to just submit to women and let women do everything. Women can not only do everything a man can do, they can do everything a man can do and better, according to the average Democrat. And that's the idea that they're trying to instill in young men. And young men are like, no. Sometimes guys just want to be dudes. They don't want to be pandered to. They don't want to be lectured about what it means to be a real man. And it's not manly. Like Dave Bautista, the WWE guy, played in like the Guardians of the Galaxy movies and some other stuff. He came out and went on this massive power trip about how it's not manly to go for Trump. Trump isn't a traditional man, blah, 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 blah. At this point, it's not even about whether or not Trump is a traditional man. It's the fact that at least Republicans are like, hey, yo, men are men, women are women. You can't change that. Men have more of a defined role in society that is separate, but just as important as a defined role for women in society. And yeah, there can be some crossover and some change. But overall, men are men, women are women. And one can't become the other. It's not possible. It's not that deep. Like what I mean is to Democrats that are listening, it's not that deep. Guys just want to be dudes. And you don't need them to come at you and say, you don't need to go at them and say, oh, to be a real man, you have to cry in front of your family. You have to braid your daughter's hair. You have to actually be more feminine. That's not what it's about. But what would you expect? These Democrats do not know what it means to be a man. And there was even a CNN analyst, Scott Jennings, who came out soon after this ad came out, soon after the Walls hunting incident. And here's what he had to say. I think this was pretty much one of the best ways to put it. Take a look and listen to Scott Jennings.
It was a rough week. I mean, her faves are down. They're struggling with, the front page of the New York Times this morning, Democrats struggling with African-American voters, particularly African-American men. This gender gap issue is real. It's a real problem. And you see the Democrats reacting to it. And I think what they are now finally in October, the election, coming to realize is that a lot of men think Democrats care more about dudes who want to become women than dudes who just want to be dudes.
Exactly.
And no hunting, cosplay, or cringy videos is going to change it. The bet is made. Working class men, whether you're black, Hispanic, or white, persistently, consistently do not believe the Democratic Party and specifically Kamala Harris are going to do a thing for them. They've been told that they're the problem. And I suspect they're going to rise up on election day and tell the elites who told them that you're wrong.
Exactly. And even Scott Jennings, because that's not even a Republican or a Democrat issue. In that instance, like all the Democrats would have to do, this is like the craziest thing is like Democrats are Kurt Cobaining themselves, shotgun to their own head in the fact that they can't just like let people be people. Like you could push your socialist agenda. You could push Medicare for all. You could push universal basic income, and you could actually probably get more support if you didn't tell like half the population that they need to sit down, shut up, and listen. When they're the half of the population that are least likely to be able to sit down, shut up, and listen all at the same time. If you know a good man, you probably know he's not a great multitasker, and you probably know that he can't keep his mouth shut even when it's a good idea. I know I can't sometimes. That's why I'm here. And that's the crazy thing. And Scott Jennings comes out and he says it. He calls it like it sees it. He's like, these young men feel like Democrats care more about women that want to become men than actual men or men that want to become women. And I feel like that's a really important thing to say. And we're going to talk about that just a little bit more. But he got all these, whoas. But once again, Democrats could still focus on that issue if their whole thing was like a 1970s hippie, like peace, love, and do whatever you want, man. But instead, like the man in the video, they full throat it. They shove it so far down your throat that it would have you questioning your sexuality if you ate it up. But let's get to some comments here, and then we're going to talk a little bit more about men, what it means to be a man, and then we will get to the Fox News interview. I know you might be getting ready for Monday night or Thursday night football. What day is it? I'm in law school. It's too much. You might be getting ready for it, but I appreciate people coming in. Thank you so much, Common Sense, for joining. Hey. How is this dude? Dad, that's an interesting point to bring up as well. Is the fact that Tim Walz already, we know, stolen valor, but he was in the National Guard, can't load his rifle, has issues loading his rifle. Crazy. Random straw bale in front of the pickup guy makes no sense. Yeah, it's because it was all staged, 100%. He might not even be in a farm in that. They just use like a green screen or something. It's too friendly with the corn cobs. That's funny. He means Tim's full throat. That's funny. Here you go. If anyone would vote for a woman president, it could not be her. She would give us a bad name for sure. Seriously, she is as bad as Joe Biden or worse. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, to their argument, I'm a woman and I can hunt better than Walls and I can farm better than that estrogen. That's exactly what I'm saying. It's like, if it's between a man and a woman, it is very circumstantial for me as to who the man is and who the woman is. Like if it was Walls versus most women, most Republican women, I'd say one of the Republican women, or the country is just going to die. But we already know who men are. This ad was so cringy. Absolutely. And also one last thought on that ad that we brought up earlier. This one, I'll bring it up on screen so everybody can see it again. This ad, one last thought on this ad is that if at the end, if the whole ad is like you saying, I'm man enough to do these things. I'm man enough to do these things. I'm such a man. Look at how manly I am. First off, I'm going to not believe you're a man. If you have to brag to me as to how much of a man you are, I'm going to be like, whoa, that's the kind of thing where it's like, I should be able to notice that you're a good, strong man. I should be able to see from a few interactions of your character that you're a strong man, or even sometimes just by the way you present yourself, I can tell or I can get a good idea as to whether or not you're a good man. But so you have this whole time where all these men are just parading, I'm so man because of this. I'm so manly because of this. And then you get to the end and then you hear this.
I love women.
I love women who support their families.
Women who decide not to have families.
Women who take charge.
And I'm man enough to help them win.
And so it's like basically saying I'm man enough to vote for Harris Walz. Are you? Meaning, are you really a man if you're going to vote for them? Are you a protector? What are you protecting if you're voting for Harris Walz? And I'm not saying because if I were to ask that question to a man who is genuinely going to vote for Harris Walz, and if they said anything about like, well, I'm not voting for Trump because XYZ, because of allegations, blah, 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 that's fine. But I'm not asking you, if you're watching right now and you're like rage quitting at your screen, I'm not talking about Trump. This ad doesn't say Trump at all. Might be implied. Highly likely it's implied, but it's not about Trump. This ad is, I'm man enough to vote for Kamala Harris. A man, at a minimum, is a protector. What about America are you protecting solely by voting for Kamala without mentioning her opponent? What does Kamala herself do? Because if you can't say a single thing that she herself is going to do, then you're not voting for Kamala. Then the act of being manly is not a vote for Kamala. If your argument is that you're more manly because you're voting against Trump, that's fine. But that's not voting for Kamala. That's voting against Trump, to be clear. And if that doesn't make sense, I can go, you can start law school. You'll kind of get it then, maybe a little bit. But as I said, it's a huge thing in the Democrat Party right now for them not to even know what a man is. And interestingly enough is actually, while the Democrat Party would not have you believe that it's unpopular, most people are not in support of most trans things, like most things that have to do with trans people. At best, the majority of Americans are like, okay, I think we should allow trans men, trans women, like to just be who they are. But the majority of people in America don't want to intermingle bathrooms, don't want to intermingle sports, don't want their children doing it. Like the most people are not very in favor of trans as an idea, as an issue. And so then we get to stories like this that we hear, which majority of people can get behind the victim in this. And we see an NCAA volleyball player says coach has repeatedly assigned her to a room with a trans player at his request. The co-captain of the San Jose State University women's volleyball team says she was repeatedly assigned to share a room with a trans identifying player on her team for overnight trips. In fact, she even went on the Megyn Kelly show and talked about this a little bit. And so I want us to take a look and listen to part of this clip in which we hear from Brooke Slusser, a college volleyball player who spoke out about the competitive advantage her male teammate had.
Notice a difference on the court in Blair's play versus the other girls?
Oh, 100%. I mean, anyone, you don't have to know volleyball at all. You could come and sit and watch one of our games. And it's so obvious that there's so much more power and strength behind that swing. I mean, you go watch a male game and a women's game, there's a complete difference. There's a reason that they're separate. So if you come and watch our games, it's the same thing. Like there is a massive difference. There is a massive
How so? Explain
difference
for the
if you just watch
non-volleyball observer here. What are we seeing? Why is that extraordinary with Blair spiking the ball?
you just can see how high Blair is jumping. I mean, he's swinging over the block against anyone that we're playing. And then it's not just a hard swing. It's a hard swing straight down. Like that is undiggable. And for people who don't know volleyball represents digging is just playing defense against a hitter. Like these swings are just, you're unable to stop it. And so it's just an insane difference, and not just the power, but the ability to even keep the ball up.
Right. Just last night, Blair played in a game and spiked a girl in the face. Here it is. Watch.
They'll have to continue to look forward as they trail by 10 points here. Fleming.
Right there. Hits her in the face. And the announcer would go on to comment on how the girl's face was turning pink from the hit. That's not the first time that Blair's
Fleming
extraordinary.
That's a crazy hit right there. You guys watch that? And I know they just went back, but that looked like somebody fired like a potato gun at that woman's face, which I know is an odd analogy. But like, I'm trying to think, like, I mean, it's like she got shot in the face, basically. It's like what it looked like.
Massive blow from the back row and a good job getting it back up. Kira Herron has some pink in her hair, and her face is starting to look like she's matching that, as obviously took the contact, but also got to feel a little embarrassed as she's trying to laugh off that last ball.
Aw, right. I think he nailed it. She's embarrassed and she's trying to laugh it off. And it wasn't the first time that even the announcers noticed a difference in Blair and the way Blair plays. Here's another example in South 50.
Her vertical is, in this match, unmatched. Blair Fleming, ladies and gentlemen, might be the most impressive athlete on the floor tonight.
And so that's who obviously she's going up against. That's who a lot of women are going up against. This young lady, though, was forced to share a room. What happened was, the other thing too is, so she didn't know. It was not disclosed to these athletes that Blair, her teammate, was a man, was a biological man. It was not disclosed to them. And of course, like, you can have a man who dresses enough like a woman, never tells anybody, maybe takes estrogen, so then they get like an A cup, maybe like a B a little bit almost. Like, you could have that to where it's passing and you don't totally know. And this young lady, at the request of the biological male, had to sleep in the same room, unknowing. Sleep, stay on multiple trips. She said, quote, I noticed as time went on, I kept getting roomed with Blair, which I found very odd because everyone else on the team was getting switched around. Come to find out later, they asked Blair who he was comfortable rooming with on away trips. And apparently there was a select few of us that were always on that list. So not only is this biological man getting a level of biological advantage by playing in women's sports, he's also being given the option, his pick of the litter of who he wants to room with of all the women on the volleyball team. If that doesn't sound like predatory behavior, I don't know what does. Like that sounds like to me, that sounds like a lawsuit waiting to happen. And that's absolutely insane. And these are the kind of people, these are the kinds of instances that do not resonate with your average voters, that push biological real men away. And Kamala Harris defends it. In fact, and it is, again, these are not popular. Like, I know that I can take on positions that are unpopular. Like my stance on abortion is a little bit more extreme than polling shows the average American is in favor of. That's fine. I'll admit that. The idea of having biological men playing in women's sports is unfavorable to the majority of Americans. In fact, a lot of things are. And so the way that the Trump team, in a great way, the way that the Trump team appeals to the average American, and especially the average American male, is not by putting out an ad that needs to tell you, to wag their finger and say you're a sexist if you don't vote for Kamala Harris and a real man votes for Kamala Harris. No. Or for Donald Trump. No, that's not what Trump does. Trump does this. He puts out a straightforward ad that tells you exactly what you need to know. And not only is it straightforward, not only does it not pander, not only is it fact-based, he also plays it during the NFL. During NFL Sunday games. Take a look and listen.
Kamala supports taxpayer-funded sex changes for prisoners.
Surgery.
For prisoners.
For prisoners. Every transgender inmate in the prison system would have access.
It's hard to believe, but it's true. Even the liberal media was shocked Kamala supports taxpayer-funded sex changes for prisoners and illegal aliens.
Every transgender inmate would have access.
Kamala's for they, them. President Trump is for you.
I'm Donald J. Trump, and I approve this message.
Kamala supports taxpayer.
See, really simple. Tells you exactly what's going on, exactly what the thoughts are, exactly what Kamala has said. There's no lie, no misinformation. It's Kamala's own words. Then he plays it during the NFL. That is how you win men over. But Kamala doesn't know that because Kamala is part of the parent state that needs to tell you what a man is, needs to provide everything for you so they can take it away, needs to wag the finger in your face and tell you you're sexist and racist if you don't do exactly what they say, make you feel shame for not obeying their commandment of honor thy father and mother government. That's what Kamala Harris does. And that's why men are just not even the slightest bit interested. Real men are not in the slightest bit interested in voting for Kamala Harris. But she's trying new things. She's trying to get out there. I mean, so I don't know if you guys have the Fox News app. I know that in the conservative movement, Fox News has become iffy for some people, especially after firing Tucker. I have my own opinions on Fox News. But what I will say is that I did kind of like how pretty much every day after Kamala got into the race, they sent a thing that was like, Kamala has never had an interview. First, it was like, Kamala's never had an interview. Kamala's never had a press conference. Kamala's never sat down with anybody who has actually challenged her. And they consistently did this. They did this more and more and more, pretty much every day until last night. Until last night, Kamala finally got questioned by Bret Baier. Kamala got questioned by Bret Baier on Fox News. I've always liked Bret Baier. That's one of the reasons why I still kind of think about Fox News. I still kind of like them sometimes, stuff like that, is because Bret Baier does good interviews. They still provide some quality content sometimes. And so she did an interview with Bret Baier. We're going to go with that, but I wanted to start with just some of the follow-up. Before we even watch, you guys might have watched it. We're going to go through it. We're going to react to it together because it ended up being shorter than it was anticipated. But there's already fallout. And I think this is one of the funniest ones. So this is actually This is The View. These are our ladies on The View reacting to the Fox News interview. Take a look and a listen. This is Not So Sunny Houston.
I think that there will be people that will change their minds. I think that there will be people that were very shocked at that. I was shocked in real time because you have people that are never Trumpers that watch Fox News. You have independents that watch Fox News. You have Democrats that watch Fox News. So the reason she appeared on Fox News is because she knows that there are openings for her there. But, you know, Bret.
No, the reason why first off, the reason she appeared on Fox News was not because she thought there were openings. The reason she appeared on Fox News is because she was kind of goaded into it because she had been trying to do the Biden playbook, which was hide in the basement, don't talk to anybody, don't actually allow anybody to hear what my thoughts are, what I think, because the more that she lets people hear her, the less they like her. That's just the way it is. People don't like her. People don't like what she has to say. People that think she sounds dumb, she's unlikable, all that stuff. So the reason is not because she was like, Kamala is just a woman of the people, according to Sunny. Kamala is just a woman of the people. She just wants to get out and talk to everybody. She just wants to get out and talk. No, that's not what it was, Sunny.
Baier, he did himself a disservice by doing what he did. He is known for doing the bidding of Fox News, but he ends his show every night as fair, balanced, and unafraid.
So the reason why he would end his show with that is actually, I mean, not only because it's pretty true, but also because Fox News is like motto or their company slogan is fair and balanced. But
well, that was not fair and balanced, and
that was not fair and balanced. Actually, her going on Fox News is the most balanced thing about her campaign. She went on the Call Her Daddy podcast and talked to that whore Alex Cooper before going on Fox News, the top cable news network. But okay, it's not fair and balanced. It's not fair and balanced. Crazy. Well, it's not just Sunny. If Sunny Houston is going after it, it must mean that it's pretty favorable to the conservatives. But let's not just take something like that, not just Sunny Houston and her ramblings and think, oh, well, that must mean that Kamala did poorly. I haven't watched it yet. I'll be 100% honest with you guys. I was waiting to watch it until this show. So we're going to react to it together. And I am anticipating it being a lot of fun. I've only seen like one clip online, and it was where Kamala says something to the effect of like, just trust me. Just trust me. You know what I'm talking about. Well, here's the other thing that I saw is that if you take a look at here, this is Polymarket. This is Polymarket Trends. And this is how Trump has gone up just in like the last 2 months, with yesterday to today being one of the largest jumps because of how terrible her interview allegedly was. And so you can see, so Polymarket is gauging the betting markets as to who people are betting on winning in the 2024 election. And so you can see there's a lot of people that have been betting on Donald Trump. Around early October, it was pretty dead even. Late September, early October is pretty dead even. And then you get to today, and it's the highest difference, 37 to 62. Wow. What a stark difference you see there. What a stark difference you see there. That is insane. But I want to know just how bad this was. I want to know just how bad Kamala did in this Fox News interview. I'm kind of like a kid on Christmas morning right now. I'm so excited to watch this. I woke up this morning and it was like my stock just just went up 100%. So we're going to take a look and listen to the full interview, and we're going to react to this. I'm really excited for this. I don't know if you guys can tell. Before we do, I want to remind everybody to like, subscribe, comment, share, all that fun stuff. And let's get to it. Kamala Harris's disastrous Fox News interview. This very, very well may be the point at which she loses the election because of this interview. And not to mention the fact that it is the first time she sat down with anybody who is even remotely critical of her. Take a look and a listen.
Vice President, thank you for the time.
Thank you. It's good to be with you, Bret.
You know, voters tell pollsters all over the country and here in Pennsylvania that immigration is one of the key issues that they're looking at this election, and specifically the influx of illegal immigrants from more than 150 countries. How many illegal immigrants would you estimate your administration has released into the country over the last
great first question for the border czar?
Well, I'm glad you raised the issue of immigration, because I agree with you. It is a topic of discussion that people want to rightly have. And you know what I'm going to talk about.
Yeah, but
right
do you
now,
just a
which
number?
is-
Do you
but-
think it's 1 million, 3 million?
Brett, let's just get to the point.
She can't even.
Okay, the point is.
What is the point?
That we have a broken immigration system that needs to be repaired.
So your
And-
Homeland Security Secretary said that
Well, no,
85%
but
of
I'm not
apprehensions.
finished. I'm not finished. We have
It's a
an
rough
immigration
estimate of
system.
6
You're not
million
you're not
people have
answering the
been
question,
released
Kamala.
into
That's
the
why.
country. And let me just finish. I'll get to the question. I promise you.
I was beginning to answer.
And when you came into office, your administration immediately reversed a number of Trump border policies. Most significantly, the policy that required illegal immigrants to be detained through deportation, either in the U.S. or in Mexico. And you switched that policy. They were released from custody awaiting trial. So instead, included in those were a large number of single men, adult men, who went on to commit heinous crimes. So looking back, do you regret the decision to terminate Remain in Mexico at the beginning of your administration?
At the beginning of our administration, within practically hours of taking the oath, the first bill that we offered Congress, before we worked on infrastructure, before the Inflation Reduction Act, before the Chips and Science Act.
Yeah, but after Joe Biden signed executive orders to repeal pretty much everything Trump had done, actually everything that Trump had done under the Trump administration. Why did he do this? Why? Because he said he was going to. He said on day one, he's going to undo everything Trump has done, even the good things. Again, that's a paraphrased quote from Joe Biden on his campaign trail. So yes, sure, maybe it was before all these other things, we put out a bill about immigration, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, but you also repealed Remain in Mexico. You repealed you tried your best to stop the border wall as much as possible. You did in a lot of parts, but
Before the bipartisan Safer Communities Act, the first bill, practically within hours of taking the oath, was a bill to fix our immigration system.
Yes, ma'am. It was called
And-
the U.S. Citizenship Act of
fact check.
2021. It was essentially a pathway to citizenship for the. Yes, ma'am.
May I finish responding, please?
But
you have to let me finish.
You had the
please.
White House and the House and the Senate,
I'm
and
in
they
the
didn't
middle
bring up
of
that bill.
responding to the point you're raising,
Okay.
and I'd like to finish.
Yes, ma'am.
We recognized from day one that, to the point of this being your first question, it is a priority for us as a nation and for the American people. And our focus has been on fixing a problem. And from day one, then, we have done a number of things, including to address our asylum system and put more resources, getting more judges, what we needed to do to tighten up penalties and increase penalties for illegal crossings, what we needed to do to deal with points of entry between border entry points. That's the work we did, and we worked on supporting what was a bipartisan effort, including some of the most conservative members of the United States Congress.
So then why didn't you do it though?
To actually strengthen the border.
Because if you had this bill that was out there on day one, why didn't you do it? When Joe Biden, if you guys are old enough to remember, like I am, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, they had the executive branch, of course, because they won it. Then they also had Democrats controlled the House and Democrats controlled the Senate. So why didn't it pass? Why didn't it even see the floor?
That border bill would have put 1,500 more border agents at the border, which is why I believe the Border Patrol agents supported the bill. It would have allowed us to stem the flow of fentanyl coming into the United States, which is a scourge affecting people of every background, every geographic location in our country, killing people.
So here's a political tactic that she's using right here is she's actually, and this is, you'll see this all the time. I probably pointed it out on other things I've reacted to, but what she's doing right now is she's accurately stating a problem. And a lot of times politicians will do this when they don't want to actually give an answer because their actual belief or their record might not reflect well on helping the problem. And so like what she's doing is she's gotten a lot of questions about like fentanyl at the border, the dangers of the border and everything. And so she will harp in and make you feel really good about the fact that she knows the problem. And that's what she's saying here is this bill would have helped with fentanyl. And then she spends a lot of time lecturing you about fentanyl and about the issue of fentanyl. But never once does she actually say, this is how I would solve that issue, or here's how I would solve that issue as president. Here's why we haven't solved it in the last 3.5 years of my vice presidency. Here's why Joe Biden didn't solve anything. XYZ, she didn't say it. What she does is she harps in on the problem itself to make you feel like it's like she knows what she's talking about.
It would have allowed us to put more resources into prosecuting transnational criminal organizations, which I have done as the Attorney General, former Attorney General of a border state.
Madam Vice President, a couple of things.
Prosecuted trafficking of drugs, guns, and human beings. And Donald Trump, but let me just finish.
6 Democrats voted against that bill.
Learned about that bill and told them to kill it because he preferred to run on a problem instead of fixing a problem. And in this election, this is rightly a discussion that the American people want to have. And what they want are solutions, and they want a president of the United States.
They do want solutions. Offer them, because all you've said so far is that somehow it's Donald Trump's fault when you're the one in office.
Who's not playing political games with the issue,
I hear you,
but actually is focused on fixing
6
it.
Democrats voted against that bill. It would have allowed 1.8 million illegal immigrants into the country a year. A lot of conservatives had a problem with it. These are the 6 Democrats. But more importantly, back to the original premise, Jocelyn Nungary.
So I want to hear what he said. Jocelyn Nungary, we'll remember that. But I also want to claim here or come back here for a second and look. So we can see he says that a number of Republicans also
voted against that bill.
6
it
Democrats.
Would have allowed 1.8 million.
Here you go. Here's the 6 Democrats. Okay, so you can see multiple. So you have Kyrsten Sinema, pretty liberal. You have Booker, pretty liberal. Sanders, pretty liberal. Both the California senators, so they're going to be pretty liberal. And then Massachusetts, I believe, is MA, or is that Maryland? No, Maryland's MD. This has got to be Massachusetts. Thank you for bearing with me on that. But the point of what I'm saying here is then also some Republicans voted against it. Now, here's the really important thing is that then Kamala would come out, and a lot of politicians would do this, and it's because politicians never want to take accountability for their actions. A lot of humans, it's actually human nature. A lot of humans want to blame somebody else. It's always somebody else's fault. It's really easy to blame somebody else rather than taking accountability. And so what you'll see is you'll see her then blame Donald Trump. She'll blame the people and say, well, they should have voted for it. We did everything we could have. No. The job of the executive branch is not to say, here's everything I want. You guys deal with it. No, the job of the executive branch is to kind of try to, at least in terms of helping pass legislation, and this is a huge part of Kamala Harris's job, being the presider over the Senate and the tie-breaking vote in the Senate. Is that she's supposed to sit there and meet with all these people and say, what do you want? What do you want? What do you want? And almost act as like an intermediary between the different sides, trying to get just a little bit more for her side. That's the goal. But Kamala Harris instead, because she's a pretty low IQ individual, her whole idea is, well, I know what I want. And so if you guys don't do it, it's your fault. It's your fault, and I'm going to blame you, like a child.
Million illegal immigrants into the country a year. A lot of conservatives had a problem with it. These are the 6 Democrats. But more importantly, back to the original premise, Jocelyn Nungary, Rachel Morin, Laken Riley, they are young women who were brutally assaulted and killed by some of the men who were released at the beginning of the administration, well before a negotiated bipartisan bill. Former President Clinton actually referred to Laken Riley Sunday, campaigning for you in Georgia, saying if those men had been properly vetted, Laken Riley probably would not have been killed.
Covered on that on my show the other night.
It wouldn't have happened. This is well before any negotiation. This is well before Donald Trump got involved in the politics. This is a specific policy decision by your administration to release these men into the country. So what I'm saying to you, do you owe
Brett,
those families an apology?
So she's going to get mad at him the whole time, saying that he's interrupting her and won't let him answer. But then he is accurately asking a question using facts. And she's like, no, I must interrupt you. I must interrupt you.
Let me just say, first of all, those are tragic cases. There's no question about that. There is no question about that. And I can't imagine the pain that the families of those victims have experienced for a loss that should not have occurred. So that is true. It is also true that if a border security had actually been passed 9 months ago, it would be 9 months that we would have had more border agents at the border, more support for the folks who are working around the clock trying to hold it all together.
Madam Vice President.
To ensure that no future harm would occur. And this election in 20 days will determine whether we have a president of the United States who actually cares more about fixing a problem, even if it is not to their political advantage in an election, because there was a solution, Bret.
Madam Vice President.
So all we're hearing is there is a solution. We were not going to know what it is. We're not going to know why they did any of this. We're not going to, we know that there's tragic cases, blah, 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 but we're not actually going to know anything about it. There is a solution though, everybody, just in case you're wondering, there is a solution. There is a solution.
It was a policy decision in the early part of your administration. I will let one of the mothers talk about it. Take a listen.
Because of the Biden-Harris administration open border policies catch and release, they were enrolled in the Alternatives to Detention program. This meant that they were released into the United States. It was not even a full 3 weeks later that they would take my daughter, Jocelyn Nungare's life. I believe the Biden-Harris administration open border policies are responsible for the death of my daughter.
That's the early days. So do you owe them an apology is what I'm saying.
I will tell you that I am so sorry for her loss. Oh my God. I'm so sorry for her loss. Sincerely.
What a train
But
wreck.
let's talk about
what a train wreck.
What is happening right now with an individual who does not want to participate in solutions. Let's talk about that as well.
But do you
Brett,
want to answer
in all fairness, I told you, I feel awful for what she and her family have experienced.
During that time, you said repeatedly that the border was secure. When in your mind did it start becoming a crisis?
I think we've had a broken immigration system transcending, by the way, Donald Trump's administration even before. Let's all be honest about that. I have no pride in saying that this is a perfect immigration system. I've been clear, I think we all are, that it needs to be fixed. We need more. I was just down at the border talking with border agents, and they will tell you, and I'm sure you.
I'm old enough to remember when she was assigned border czar, and it took her like 3-4 months to actually get down to the border. But thank God she was just down there now because it's politically expedient for her to do so when she's on the campaign trail for president.
Probably, I know you investigate and you are a serious journalist. They will tell you we need more judges. We need to process those cases faster. We need the support for those cases that should be prosecuted. They need more resources, and Congress ultimately is the only place that's going to get fixed, Brett. Well, that's how the system works.
That's the premise of this question.
But
there were
that's how the
90
system
plus
works.
executive orders that were rescinded in the first days. Many of those were Trump border policies. I'm not going to stay here because there's other things to talk about, but you frequently talk to the Border Patrol Union for support of that bipartisan bill, and they did. They supported it. But they also just endorsed Donald Trump and said, you've been, quote, a failure with border security. Why do you think they said that?
I think they're frustrated, and I get it. They want support. They want support, and that's what that border security bill would have done. These guys down at the border, these men and women.
Now, why didn't it get passed, Kamala? Why didn't it get passed? You had the House and the Senate. You had all the power. Why didn't you work more with the conservative leaders? Why didn't you work more? Like, why did you not work with the people? You didn't. You didn't. You didn't do your job, and you failed, and people died because of it. But this shameless shill that has no principles would never admit that.
They're working around the clock. I get it.
There's a lot of people that look back at what you said in 2019 when you first ran for president. And there have been changes, and you've talked about some of them. When it comes to immigration, you supported allowing immigrants in the country illegally to apply for driver's license, to qualify for free tuition at universities, to be enrolled in free health care. Do you still support those things?
Listen, that was 5 years ago, and I'm very clear that I will follow the law. I have made that statement over and over again, and as Vice President of the United States, that's exactly what I've done, not to mention before.
If that's the case, you chose a running mate, Tim Walz, governor of Minnesota, who signed those very things into state law. So do you support that?
We are very clear, and I am very clear, as is Tim Walz, that we must support and enforce federal law, and that is exactly what we will do.
So decriminalizing border crossings, like you said in 2019.
I do not believe in decriminalizing border crossings, and I've not done that as vice president. I will not do that as president.
So these are evolutions that you've had.
But let's be very clear. I'm the only person who's running for president who has prosecuted transnational criminal organizations, from the Sinaloa cartel to the Guadalajara cartel to people who have trafficked in guns, drugs, and human beings. I have spent a significant part of my career going after people who present a threat to the safety of the American people and cross our border with the intent of doing us harm and cross our border illegally. And I will do that work as vice president. I take that work quite seriously.
This is a time when voters, especially here in Pennsylvania, are inundated with commercials and ads. They just want it to stop because it's every commercial. But many of them add noise, but a few of them seem to break through. This particular one from the Trump campaign has gotten a lot of attention.
Kamala supports taxpayer-funded sex changes for prisoners.
Surgery.
For prisoners.
For prisoners. Every transgender inmate in the prison system would have access.
So are you still in support of using taxpayer dollars to help prison inmates or detained illegal aliens to transition to another gender?
I will follow the law. And it's a law that Donald Trump actually followed. You're probably familiar with, now it's a public report, that under Donald Trump's administration, these surgeries were available on a medical necessity basis to people in the federal prison system.
That's the difference, though. That's the important part, is that it's on a medically necessary basis. If it's not medically necessary, but that's the definition point of it. Is so, like, under Kamala's administration, medically necessary means something different than under Trump's administration. That's the important context there that she would never admit, because it's not politically helpful to her.
And I think, frankly, that ad from the Trump campaign is a little bit of like throwing, stones when you're living in a glass house.
The Trump aides say that he never advocated for that prison policy, and no gender transition surgeries
you know what? You got to
happened
take
during
responsible for what
his
happened in your
presidency.
administration.
Yeah, no surgeries happened in his presidency.
It's in
So
black and white.
would you still advocate for using taxpayer dollars for gender reassignment
I will
surgeries?
follow the law, just as I think Donald Trump would say he did.
You would have a say as president.
Like I said, I think he spent $20 million on those ads, trying to create a sense of fear in the voters because he
Okay, he spent $20 million on those ads. Like, as if it's a bad thing that he spent a lot of money on ads. Like, that's the problem that I have with her saying that, is because she makes it sound like oh my gosh, look at how much money he spent on TV advertisements. I guarantee, I don't have the numbers off the top of my head, but I guarantee you, Kamala has spent a considerable amount more on advertisements than Donald Trump has.
actually has no plan in this election that is about focusing on the needs of the American people. Whereas at $20 million on that ad, on an issue that, as it relates to the biggest issues that affect the American people, it's really quite remote. And again, his policy was no different. Look at where we are, though.
They say
On
it was
plans for
different,
the
but
American
we'll move
people,
on.
I'm offering a plan to deal with affordable housing. I'm offering a plan to deal with what we need to do to strengthen small businesses, which are the backbone of America's economy. I am offering a plan that is...
That reminds me, if you guys have ever seen The Backbone of America's Economy, there's a movie called The Campaign with Will Ferrell and Zach Galifianakis, in which Will Ferrell is a incumbent, I believe in the Senate, maybe a congressman. And he goes around to all these different people and he's like, you are the backbone of American economy. And he even goes over like tilt-a-whirl repairmen are the backbone of America's economy. That's how Kamala Harris sounds when she talks.
It's about taking care of young parents and giving them the support they need. My plans for the economy will strengthen the economy, as have been reviewed by 16 Nobel laureates, Goldman Sachs, Moody's, and recently the Wall Street Journal, which have all studied our plans and have indicated my plans for our economy would strengthen our economy, his would make them weaker,
Why do you
would
think more
ignite
people
inflation and invite a recession by the middle of next year. Those are the facts.
Why do you think more people say they trust him on the economy than they trust you?
I think that when you look at an analysis of our plans for what we would do as president of the United States, it has been clear to those who study and understand how economic policy works that moving forward, because I do believe the American people are ready to turn the page on the divisiveness and the type of rhetoric that has come out of Donald Trump. People are ready to chart a new way forward, and they want a president who has a plan for the future and a plan that is sound and will strengthen our country. My plan for the economy does exactly that. His plan would be, again, to give tax cuts to billionaires and the biggest corporations in our country and blow up our deficit.
It's interesting you said turn.
Then why is it that when he was president, minus COVID, we had like the best economy in decades? Why? Why was it the gas prices were at their lowest? Why was it that cost of goods were low? Our GDP was high. Like, by all available metrics, our economy was phenomenal under Donald Trump. And by all available metrics, right now, when you are the vice president, our economy is really bad. Why? Why?
Turn the page, Madam Vice President. You were asked on 2 different shows last week what, if anything, you would do differently than President Biden. Here's what you said.
Would you have done something differently than President Biden during the past 4 years?
There is not a thing that comes to mind in terms of, and I've been a part of most of the decisions that have had impact.
Under a Harris administration, what would the major changes be and what would stay the same?
Sure. Well, I mean, I'm obviously not Joe Biden.
I know.
And so that would be one change in terms of
the only
but
change she
also,
lists in the entire
I think
answer.
it's important
She's
to
not
say
Joe
with,
Biden.
28 days to go, I'm not Donald Trump.
So you're not Joe Biden, you're not Donald Trump, but nothing comes to mind that you would do differently?
Let me be very clear. My presidency will not be a continuation of Joe Biden's presidency. And like every new president that comes in to office, I will bring my life experiences, my professional experiences, and fresh and new ideas. I represent a new generation of leadership.
Then why haven't you done it for the last 3.5 years that you've been vice president? Now, like, of course, you're still not the president, but like, you're pretty close. And Joe Biden obviously wasn't doing much. Like, that's why he got kicked out, is because he was not mentally competent. So why didn't you do it?
I, for example, am someone who has not spent the majority of my career in Washington, D.C. I invite ideas, whether it be from the Republicans who are supporting me, who were just on stage with me minutes ago, and the business sector.
We're talking about like
and
Liz
others
Cheney, by the way,
who
when she
can
says Republican.
contribute to the decisions that I make about, for example, my plan for increasing the supply of housing in America and bringing down the cost of housing, addressing the issue of small businesses, which is about working with the private sector to bring more capital and access to capital to our small business leaders, including my plan for a $25,000 down payment assistance for first-time home buyers and for small businesses, extending the tax deduction from $5,000 to $50,000.
We've heard a lot about those plans in recent days. Your campaign slogan is a new way forward, and it's time to turn the page. You've been vice president for 3.5 years. So what are you turning the page from?
Well, first of all, turning the page from the last decade in which we've been burdened with the kind of rhetoric coming from Donald Trump that has been designed and implemented to divide our country and have Americans literally point fingers at each other. Rhetoric and an approach to leadership that suggests that the strength of a leader is based on who you beat down instead of what we all know. The strength of leadership is based on who you lift up. The strength of an American president, which is one who understands that the vast majority of us have more in common than what separates us.
Madam Vice President, more than
turning the
70% of people.
That is
tell
about turning the
pollsters-
page on rhetoric that People are frankly exhausted of Bret.
More than
People are
70% of people
exhausted.
tell the country is on the wrong track. They say the country is on the wrong track. If it's on the wrong track, that track follows 3.5 years of you being vice president and President Biden being president. That is what they're saying, 79% of them. Why are they saying that? If you're turning the page, you've been in office for 3.5 years.
And Donald Trump has been running for office.
Oh, my
So
God.
you've been the person
Come
holding
on,
the office.
come on.
Madam,
Wait. You've been in office for 3.5 years. Why hasn't anything happened? Why? What page are you turning? Where are we going? What's on this next page? Donald Trump has been running for, oh my God. Oh my God.
You and I both know what I'm talking about. You and I both know what I'm talking about.
What are you talking about?
What I'm talking about is that over the last decade,
But you're
people
the
have
lever of
become,
power.
but listen, over the last decade, it is clear to me, and certainly the Republicans who are on stage with me, the former chief of staff to the president, Donald Trump, former defense secretaries, national security advisor, and his vice president. One, that he is unfit to serve, that he is unstable, that he is dangerous, and that people are exhausted with someone who professes to be a leader who spends full time demeaning and engaging in personal grievances and it being about him instead of the.
This is, and she exemplifies it in this clip right here. Kamala Harris is the Trump derangement syndrome candidate. Now, of course, we always knew that people would vote for her because she's not Trump, blah, blah, blah. But no, she herself suffers from Trump derangement syndrome. Every problem, even though she has had almost the most amount of power to fix them, is still somehow Donald Trump's fault. I'm guarantee you the problems in Kamala Harris's marriage are somehow Donald Trump's fault. Kamala Harris has no policy. She has no opinion of her own necessarily. She has nothing to stand on because all she stands on is, I hate Donald Trump. She is the Trump derangement syndrome candidate.
American people are tired of that.
If that's the case, why is half the country supporting him? Why is he beating you in a lot of swing states? Why, if he's as bad as you say, that half of this country is now supporting this person who could be the 47th president of the United States? Why is that happening?
This is an election for president of the United States. It's not supposed to be easy.
I know, but
it's not supposed.
She came out. She goes. It's not that deep. It's not that deep. It's not that deep. He's like, if you're saying that he's so bad, why does half the country love him? And she's like, it's not that deep. It's not that deep. Don't worry about it. It's just an election. Like, that's just how it works. Like, no, if he was really as bad as you say he is, if he was really this evil, vile, literally Hitler, racist, sexist, homophobic, if that's really what he was, guarantee you, half the country wouldn't like him. But when you reframe the words racist to mean anybody who believes that it doesn't matter if you're white or black, we just should live, and I don't see color. Well, according to Kamala, you're racist. If you don't atone for your whiteness, you're racist. So, yeah, you have half the country. To her, it's just an election. It's just an election. It's just an eletion.
To be, it is not supposed to be a cakewalk.
So are they misguided, the 50%?
Listen,
are they stupid? What is
God,
it?
I would never say that about the American people. And in fact, if you listen to Donald Trump, if you watch any of his rallies, he's the one who tends to demean and belittle.
Again, how is it? It always comes back to Trump. It always is like, okay, yes, I get he's asking a question. Why do people support Trump if he's as bad as you say? But somehow, she's still not answering the question. Her answer is still, well, Donald Trump is the problem. Donald Trump is the problem. Donald Trump is the problem. She is the Trump derangement syndrome candidate.
And diminish the American people. He's the one who talks about an enemy within, an enemy within, talking about the American people, suggesting he would turn the American military on the American people.
When he asked that question to the former president today, Harris Faulkner had a town hall, and this is how he responded.
I heard about that. They were saying I was like threatening. I'm not threatening anybody. They're the ones doing the threatening. They do phony investigations. I've been investigated more than Alphonse Capone. He was the greatest gangster. No, it's true. No, but think of it. It's called weaponization of government. It's a terrible thing.
So,
Bret, I'm sorry, and with all due respect, that clip was not what he has been saying about the enemy within that he has repeated when he's speaking about the American people. That's not what you just showed.
he was asked about that
No,
specific...
that's not what you just showed. In all fairness and respect to you.
That was the question that we asked him.
You didn't show that, and here's the bottom line. He has repeated it many times, and you and I both know that. And you and I both know that he has talked about turning the American military on the American people. He has talked about going after people who are engaged in peaceful protest. He has talked about locking people up because they disagree with him. This is a democracy. And in a democracy, the president of the United States, in the United States of America, should be willing to be able to handle criticism without saying he'd lock people up for doing it. And
Wait. Let me back up like 10 seconds, please.
And in a democracy, the president of the United States, in the United States of America, should be willing to be able to handle criticism without saying he'd lock people up for doing it.
I could go on a rant about that entire clip right there. But like you guys heard it too, right? You guys heard it too. I think we get it.
And this is what is at stake, which is why you have someone like the former chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff saying what Mark Milley has said about Donald Trump being a threat to the United States of America.
He's quoted in the Bob Woodward book that way, yes. Let me ask you this, Madam Vice President. You call Donald Trump, you call Donald Trump, he's misguided. You say now
he's unstable. He is unstable, Bret.
He's not well. You say he's mentally not stable.
He's not stable.
Let me ask you this. You told many interviewers that Joe Biden was on his game, that ran around circles on his staff. When did you first notice that President Biden's mental faculties appeared diminished?
Joe Biden, I have watched from the Oval Office to the Situation Room, and he has the judgment and the experience to do exactly what he has done in making very important decisions on behalf of the American people.
There were no concerns raised?
Brett, Joe Biden is not on the ballot.
I understand.
And Donald Trump
but
is.
You talked about it.
And Donald Trump
after George Clooney said within a few minutes of talking to President Biden at a fundraiser that he thought this was not the same Joe Biden that we saw on the debate stage.
Donald Trump is on the ballot.
I understand. You met with him at least once a week for 3.5 years. You didn't have any concerns?
I think the American people have a concern about Donald Trump, which is why the people who know him best, including leaders of our national security community, have all spoken out. Even people who worked for him in the Oval Office, worked with him in the Situation Room, and have said he is unfit and dangerous and should never be president of the United States again, including his former vice president, which is why the job was open for him to choose another running mate. So that is a fact. That is a fact.
Madam Vice President, two more things. You were asked on 60 Minutes about the biggest threat that the world faces, that the U.S. faces. This is what you said.
Which foreign country do you consider to be our greatest adversary?
I think there's an obvious one in mind, which is Iran. Iran has American blood on their hands. Okay.
Actually,
this attack on Israel, 200 ballistic missiles.
I didn't react to the 60 Minutes interview on my channel. I thought this was a very interesting question. I actually think that was, if she had just stuck with like Iran and some of her explanation, not a terrible answer. Iran is a serious threat, 100%. I would have probably maybe put China a little bit higher up on there, but it was better. She could have said Russia, and I would have laughed at that.
What we need to do to ensure that Iran never achieves the ability to be a nuclear power, that is one of my highest priorities.
A number of experts thought you would say China. The FBI director had said that, but you said Iran. If that's the case, what do you say to critics who look at the actions of your administration and say you're not acting like Iran is the number one threat?
True.
Well,
Good question. Great question.
I will tell you most recently, whether it was in April or in October, and then several hours on each occasion that Iran posed a threat to Israel, I was there. Most recently in the Situation Room, in the most recent attack, working with the heads of our military and doing what America must always do to defend and to support Israel in its requirement to defend itself, and to give American support to be able to allow Israel to have the resources to defend itself against attack, including from Iran and Iran's terrorist proxies in the region.
If that sounds like word salad to you, it's because it is, because she knows that for money reasons, she has to support Israel. But for voting reasons, she wants to try to be a little bit of a terrorist sympathizer with Palestine.
Right.
And that
But those
is,
proxies were getting
and
funded
my
by Iran.
commitment to that is unyielding and unwavering.
Critics just say that you either relaxed or failed to enforce sanctions on Iran, allowing all of this money to flow into Iran, like billions.
Let's go back to Donald Trump, who pulled out of a deal that would have actually put Iran in check.
The estimates in billions.
And it was during Donald Trump's
that
administration
go towards
that
the Iran regime,
that we had an American military base that was attacked, where American soldiers suffered traumatic brain injuries, and Donald Trump dismissed them as headaches, not to mention how Donald Trump has
all of this money
has treated and talked about America's military and military service people, calling them suckers and losers.
Never happened. It's been debunked multiple times.
Over each other. I apologize.
I would like that we would have a conversation that is grounded in full assessment of the facts, which includes, I think this interview is supposed to be about the choices that your viewers should be presented about this election, and the contrast is important.
Yes, ma'am.
And on the subject of Iran, I am offering what should be an important contrast that is presented for folks to make a decision
and there are critics
that they feel
who look at what the administration did and say and think differently. Madam Vice President, they're wrapping me very hard here. I hope you got to say what you wanted to say about Donald Trump. There are a lot of things.
There's more to say. I have much more to say.
There are a lot of things that people want to learn about you.
Oh my God. I have much more to say, actually. I have much more. She comes off as even more unlikable.
Policies. And that's why
I invite everyone to go to kamalaharris.com, and you will see that I have 80 pages of policies that are quite comprehensive and should be accessible to anyone who would like to read them. And it includes what I intend to do about affordable housing, what I intend to do about small businesses, what I do.
And that's why we invited you here
our economy,
to see where you were in 2019 and where you are now.
America's military, and ensure we have the most lethal and best fighting force in the world.
Madam Vice President,
and
they're giving me a hard rap
Well,
here.
I thank you for the time.
I thank you for the time.
It's good to meet you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, so clearly that was a train wreck, and anybody who doesn't see that as a train wreck must be on payroll or genuinely like having Trump derangement syndrome. And so you would vote for the Trump derangement syndrome candidate if you yourself had Trump derangement syndrome. I think that one thing I'll see, she has a quick temper. People who worked for her quit over and over. Yeah, I heard about that as well. I've heard those stories. I've heard that she has been, I think quick temper is a kind of nice way to put it. From what I've heard, she was very, very difficult to work for, more than cutthroat. One thing that I find very interesting is yesterday, so obviously there are shills that will come out and they'll be like, oh my gosh, well, Kamala did so great. Kamala did so great. I think the funniest, and anybody who does that it's like, okay, let's see what they're actually saying. Maybe they're just a Trump derangement syndrome person. But so Kamala HQ on Twitter, which is like, there's a Trump HQ too. They came out and they had this. I think this is probably one of the funniest posts I've seen, because when you take in the context into account, I think it's really important to understand it. But most people won't take the context into account. But so there was this post on Kamala HQ's Twitter. I'll make it bigger for everybody. You have this post here where it says Harris on Fox News, 7.1 million. Trump yesterday on Fox, 3 million followers. I think it's so important to talk about like the context of this, because nobody's going to look into the context, because this is all they posted. And then it has like an emoji or something at the top of the tweet. The context of this: Trump went on Fox during the Faulkner focus. So Trump right now is trying to win over like middle-class moms, white moms, especially suburban moms. And so that's why he even agreed to have a town hall that was all women. He did it on the Faulkner focus. Faulkner focus, if you don't know the time of it is like mid-morning, I believe. I think it's like 10 a.m. Eastern, maybe 11 Eastern, somewhere around there. A time on a Wednesday when most people are at work. The majority of TVs that are on with Fox News are like airports, businesses, and then moms at home. So he went on. He wasn't trying to get the most viewers. He was trying to target viewers. And 3 million, decent. Harris went on during prime time on the usually highest achieving cable news network that there is, and got 7.1. It's a good turnout and more than double of what Trump got midday on a Wednesday. I think that's an important context to understand, but they don't want you to believe that. Since this interview has come out, you have people like Mark Cuban. We'll even pull up a little bit about what he had to say. Mark Cuban came out and was like, this is amazing. She did such a good job. The beautiful thing about Bret Baier interview is that Kamala Harris understood and responded to each question. What a high bar. Is that she understood and responded to each question. One, if that were true, that's still a ironically low bar to try to follow. But two, she didn't. On multiple occasions, her responses were non-answers. And I guarantee you, if there was a person on Shark Tank where you went and you asked the person, there seems to be this issue with the business, can you explain to me how you would solve that? And the person said, this does seem to be a very serious issue with the business and does not provide a solution. Mark Cuban would probably tear into them. Maybe he's just jealous of Trump. Maybe that's the issue. But you have Mark Cuban, who's come out to shill for Kamala. Then you also have people like Rob Reiner, who I think is probably one of the funniest ones, because I just think this is like the funniest tweet. Like, this wins for funniest tweet after that interview. If you saw Kamala Harris on Fox News, you saw the 47th president of the United States, which is hilarious. Hilarious. Rob Reiner, you win the award funniest person on Twitter. Funniest person on Twitter. This is it's funniest thing, because like, it'd be one thing if you were like, oh, if you saw her on CNN, 47th president, because like she would get softball questions and like do okay for her. She'd probably been fed the questions beforehand. But Rob Reiner comes out and he's like, you see that Fox News interview? Like literally the train wreck, like you watched in slow motion, the Titanic sinking. 47 presidents. 47 president. I'm Rob Reiner. 47 president. That's him. That's how he sounds. I'm Rob Reiner. That's it. We watched the sinking of the Titanic and then the subsequent implosion of the submersible 100 years later, all in slow motion. And while tragic in a sense for some, glorious. The ball of fire that is the Harris campaign at this current moment is only matched by the one we see in the sun, or the great balls that Jerry Lee Lewis sang about. That is the balls of fire the great balls of fire that the Kamala Harris campaign has currently plummeted into. I guess we'll see what the next few weeks have to come. To make sure you guys don't miss a minute of it, to make sure that we are covering the election that you guys are seeing. I'm going to have some great interviews that you guys watch my shorts. I have some new interviews coming out with different college students at Liberty University. Please make sure you guys like, subscribe, share, and everything like that. If you guys want to talk more about my law school and how that's going, I will be covering that probably this weekend. Like I say, and like I always say, please like, subscribe, share, comment, all of that fun stuff. If you want to find more ways to support the show, check it out in the description of this video. God bless you. God bless America. And until next time, you have been watching Speechless.